grounding critical media literacy in scientific explorations. Our amazing panelists today are Dr. Noah Asher-Golden, Breanna Couffer, and Shane Hernandez. Noah Asher-Golden is an assistant professor in the College of Education at California State University, Long Beach. He works with future teachers and focuses on critical literacies and culturally responsive sustaining pedagogies. His current projects include a collaborative exploration of the intersections between critical media literacies and STEM, which we're going to get to hear about today. From two of his recent students and colleagues, one of whom is Breanna Couffer, a secondary science educator and member of the Critical Literacy and Climate Science Curriculum team at California State University, Long Beach. Breanna has worked actively with fellow teachers and with teacher educators to explore and address topics relating to promoting actionable literacies amongst young people and meeting a diverse range of student needs in the realm of STEM education. Breanna's presented such ideas via interactive workshops at both the 2020 California Association of Science Educators Conference and the 2021 CSULB Mini STEM Conference. She hopes to continue her collaborations with fellow educators in order to work towards the ultimate goal of fostering future generations of science-minded and multidimensionally literate planetary citizens. I love that. Our other co-presenter this morning is Shane Hernandez, a math teacher who is also a student at California State University, Long Beach, working on his single subject credential in mathematics. He's earned a math degree from Cal Poly Pomona and will continue his education in mathematics, and also clearly has a curiosity for this kind of scholarly dialogue. So Shane, Breanna, Noah, thank you so much for being here with us this morning. We're very, very excited to hear from you. And with that, I'll pass it over to Noah Golden. Noah.
Thank you so much, Anat. It is such an honor to be here, such an honor to have all of you with us and to have you as a moderator, Anat. We're hoping to have roughly half of our session for dialogue. So we're going to give an overview of our work and then hopefully have a chance to learn with and from all of you. So if you were part of the amazing sessions of this conference so far, you've been thinking a little bit about what we mean by critical media literacies. And there was a really powerful definition shared yesterday at the opening of this conference. And the big takeaway for me is that the ethos of CML, of critical media literacies, is that we think about the ways in which we interact with media and try to interrupt media as a site of oppression, as continuing oppressions. And we argue that in order to do that effectively today in 2021, in this 21st century, we need to be engaging with not only anthropological or sociological understandings, but also understandings from STEM fields. We want to think about how can we make sure that STEM education is not only being used to produce human capital, to think about workers in a knowledge economy, but also to support people in interrogating relationships with media, in questioning claims that are made in the sorts of texts that we come across in our social media feeds, or with our engagement in mass media, or with our production of media. And Paulo Freire, who we're celebrating and who we're thinking about in the context of the 21st century today, wrote in his 1985 book, The Politics of Education, that it wasn't just philosophy that we needed to reach this awareness, to become conscious, to become awoken to how systems of oppression are operating and shaping our lived realities. Paulo Freire wrote that science and philosophy together provide the actions for conscientization, for that awakening, for that consciousness. And for me, as a teacher educator, I want to think about how teaching young people in particular can help them to develop disciplinary literacies. And what we mean by that is, how can we help young people in the context of STEM education think like scientists, read and write and produce like scientists or mathematicians? And how can those knowledges, how can those understandings, those ways of thinking, reading, writing, speaking, critiquing, and analyzing, how can all of those disciplinary literacies be critical literacies? How can having those understandings help people to interrupt the way that knowledge and information may be connected with oppression? How can they be leveraged to create cultural action for freedom as opposed to cultural action for domination? And Paulo Freire talks about cultural action for freedom, that liberation from domination and oppression, as a scientific unveiling of reality, of a way in which we invite people to grasp with their minds the truth of their reality. Now, as I mentioned a moment ago, we oftentimes in critical media literacy, scholarship, activism, or praxis, we usually think of that in social science terms, in terms of sociology, in terms of anthropology. We want to think about, what does that mean in the context of STEM education, of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics? And in thinking about this, we're guided by the work of Alan Luke. And Alan Luke has this concept from his work in 2013 called regrounding critical literacy. And we think that this notion of regrounding is really important to think about how we, as Paulo Freire and Donaldo Macedo invite us to do, how we read both the word and the world. And what Alan Luke argues is that we educators need to reground critical literacy by going beyond the text. Alan is concerned that sometimes we analyze texts only staying within texts or only looking to other texts, that everything is intertextual. How do we become extra-textual? In other words, how do we go beyond the text to engage in empirical investigations in the world? So we're not stuck in this cycle of endless textual interpretation and analysis, but we acknowledge there is a truth and a reality outside of the text that we're analyzing or the text that we're producing. And we don't limit our analysis to these textual representations, but we invite interdisciplinarity. We invite into critical media literacy knowledge and practices of science or mathematics in order to explore the world beyond. And this is very obviously connected with misinformation and disinformation in the United States context related to the current pandemic, for example. But we want to offer an example that is perhaps more benign. In the latter half of the 2010s, many of you are, I'm sure, aware of this, many young people here in the United States started propagating this notion that the Earth is not roughly spherical, it's not a spheroid, it is in fact flat. This is known as the flat Earth ideology. And the reason that young people were believing this and pushing this idea was because they were engaging with the platform of YouTube. As we heard about this morning in the amazing session on Educomunicación, young people were being fed these ideas because of the algorithms of YouTube. If they clicked on one short video about this idea, all of a sudden they were inundated with tons of these on YouTube. And they started to see these very slickly produced videos suggesting that the Earth is flat, right? And young people need, all of us need, an understanding of the algorithms and the commerce aspect, the monetizing aspect of YouTube that pushes false information, in this case, in order to make a profit, and how that site is functioning, right? And we as educators need to think about, how do we critique not just how well a video is made, or not just the sorts of questions that amazing critical media scholars like Jeff Scher would invite us to pose. For example, questions like, who are all the possible people who made choices to help to create this text? Or how could this text be understood differently? Or what values, points of views, and ideologies are represented or missing from this text? Those are very important questions. And Anat, if you haven't already, share that link in the chat. These are really powerful questions to pose, but we want to ask a question of, how can we go beyond this text to investigate this in the world? And with the flat earth ideology, we might ask a student, how is it that when there's a lunar eclipse, we never see a flat, straight line shadow on the surface of the moon? Why is that? And in doing so, we go beyond the text to analyze the claims made in the text. And so I want us to think about, or invite us to think about, and to engage in dialogue with you today, how does this example of the flat earth ideology relate to misinformation or disinformation that is very clearly intended information to confuse or miseducate? How does this all relate to the climate crisis and information and disinformation that people come across every day? How does this relate to understanding health data and the decisions we make about our bodies, the health effects of certain foods or drinks? How does this relate, and I'm thinking specifically of the US context, where we've had access to vaccines for many months, and there's a segment of the population that refused to take them for the public good. How does this relate to information and disinformation about vaccines and the current pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic? So I'd like to turn it over to two colleagues, former students, amazing educators, so you can hear some of their ideas about how we might realize this notion of regrounding critical literacy when we analyze media by connecting with science and math education. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Golden. So I will go ahead and go first, and I'm going to take us through what I think that this could look like in the interdisciplinary science classroom. So I think current secondary science teachers think a lot about how can we get through all of the content, and incorporating something like critical media literacy could be a little scary because we have so many things that we have to get through in a school year. And I'd like to argue that instead of thinking of these two things as separates, I think that they should be viewed as lenses through which to look at one another. I believe that science provides critical media literacy skills with authenticity and support in a way that elevates, in a way that grounds the practice. And critical literacy can elevate scientific concepts at the same time. I like to think that this is maybe what Freire and Macedo meant by reading the word and the world. Science really can go beyond some of the textual assertions and evidence that's customary in English education. And by giving students the opportunity to look at both texts and the empirical data that's scientifically vetted and public and has been worked on for a long time in order to become what we observe as truth, it allows us to cover a whole range of both ELA and scientific standards at the same time in a way that also ensures that students end up with actionable skills that they can take into their real lives. At the moment, we see this scary happening of co-opting of critical literacy as well. As Bacon put it, one rarely considers scientific consensus on climate change as one of the dominant ideologies to be questioned through critical literacies, yet those denying human-driven climate change defend their position using the language of criticality. There is a sort of illusion of both sidesism that's being created right now, particularly related to climate science. And if a student goes to research possibly about what climate science is or how it's affecting the area in which they live, they might come upon these two documents, the IPCC and the NIPCC. And the IPCC is the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, and the NIPCC is the Non-Governmental International Panel on Climate Change. And structurally, they look very similar. They're mirrored to look very similar. And if that is confusing, they could look up the difference between the two and come upon the document that you see on the right, NIPCC versus IPCC. And without that ability to think critically, students might think that there are two sides to the climate change idea, when that's simply not true. That's not what the data says. And the NIPCC has been purposefully mirrored, or it's purposely been mirrored to the IPCC. So that way, when people look at it, they think that this is also science when it's not. And so ideally in the ELA classroom, students would analyze some of these documents. And then in the science classroom, they get to actually look at data that has helped to support the IPCC and understand the level of truth that has come from this data. So in the science classroom, what students would start with is an ocean acidification phenomenon. Ocean acidification is one of the byproducts of climate change and the planet heating up due to greenhouse gases. And one of the greenhouse gases that's prevalent in our atmosphere is carbon dioxide. And so this ocean acidification phenomenon happens inside of the range of a cup, which is really cool for the students to be able to see. And they have acetic acid and sodium bicarbonate in a small cup that when mixed together create a carbon dioxide gas and leak into a water with bromothymol blue solution down at the bottom. And it starts to turn that bromothymol blue yellow, which represents an increase in acidity. So they directly get to see how carbon dioxide, without even directly contacting the waterways, can impact the acidity in an extreme way. Then they'd go through a virtual lab to culture sea urchin larvae under different simulated ocean acidities. This virtual lab can be done right now in our current hybrid or virtual environments for a lot of school districts. And they get to study how different pH levels of ocean water can impact urchin larvae's ability to grow. And they'll find that it actually stunts their growth quite a bit. This type of research is what is prevalent in the IPCC when it talks about ecosystem impacts of climate change. Then students would evaluate a paper called Projecting Coral Reef Futures Under Global Warming and Ocean Acidification by Pandolfi et al. This document also supports some of the claims made in the IPCC. However, it is also referenced in the NIPCC. And so in this way, students get to see how documents made by people with harmful intentions or maybe intentions of financial gain can sort of cherry pick and skew data in order to fit their objective. And so it's a really powerful way to show this to your students and to make it clear. And the interdisciplinary aspect of it is what makes it really impactful as well. Lastly, students get to practice speaking like scientists. For my students, I feel like this is something that's very, very important and hits home the argumentation aspects of scientific practices. They get to pick, so it's able to be differentiated. They get to pick one of these prompts to respond to and have a sort of Socratic seminar by sharing all of their responses to these different prompts. I have all of this information on the justice.edu website. The whole lesson plan is there, and the examples are all in there as well. And I invite you to take a look at it if it interests you, because I think it's really important work. Now I'm going to pass it along to Shane, who has a brilliant example of what this might look like in the math classroom.
Thank you, Brianna. So we're going to be looking at how critical media literacy looks like in the math classroom. All right, so I wanted to focus in on how do students find information. So most students get their information from either their parents, their friends, or the internet. And these students believe what they're being told just based on faith rather than empirical evidence. So we believe what our parents are telling us because, they raised us, they want what's best for us. And we believe what our friends are saying because, we like to be around them. I want to believe what they're saying. We believe what the internet might say because, well, Google was able to find that song based off of 3 lyrics. Surely they know the answer to, this question as well. And so we want to introduce them to critical media literacy. So Jeff Scher had that great article where he asked, who are all the possible people who made choices that helped create this text? And how could this text be understood differently? And so we can use math to answer some of these questions. We want the students to critically analyze how data is represented and connected with certain points of view of who made these choices? So I had one example that I wanted to look at. And so we need math to look a little bit further. So by having the knowledge not just about how to represent data, students will learn how to make a histogram or how to make a scatter plot. But we also want them to have a better understanding of how to read the data. So on the right-hand side here, there's two charts and they're very similar. They both represent the same thing. There's one thing that is 20 and one thing that is 15, but they look different. So on the left-hand side, the difference looks very small. They look pretty close to each other. And on the right-hand side, it looks like a big difference between the two things. And so we can look at, who made these choices. And so maybe they want the difference to look really small between two things. Maybe someone represents the data this way to make the difference look really big. And how we can take different things from these two different charts. Even though they're both representing the same thing, people will take away different things from each of them. So in my lesson, so it's going to be based on caffeine. And so I went and I found several articles. They can be scientific articles, news articles, and infographics. And I went and found these just with a quick Google search, just how most students are going to get their information. And so the goal was to take these things that are, easily accessible, and I'm going to give each group of students their own article. And they're going to read through these articles and they're going to, parse through it. They can highlight things, underline things. They can use graphic organizers to help formulate their thoughts. And then they're going to summarize this and they're going to share what they got from their article with the class. And I think the interesting part comes where they have a discussion afterwards, because after everyone's done presenting, people are going to be confused. They're going to be like, well, hold on, not everyone said the same thing. Some people said, oh, this is too much caffeine. Some people said, oh, that much caffeine's fine. And so they're going to be looking at this and they're going to have a discussion. Well, how did all these people come to different conclusions? And they can go back to their text and not just read what it says, but look a little bit deeper into it. And they're going to look at it and be like, oh, well, mine was written and published by Harvard. And they're like, oh, mine was written and published by a guy who works for Red Bull, maybe. And so they're going to have this conversation about what's going on and how they all came to different conclusions, and hopefully try and talk about what's really going on. And so we can take this approach and we can apply it to other topics. So I wanted to go back and focus on reading the word and the world through the lens of critical media literacy. We want them to not just read the information, but go a little bit further than the surface level and look at, who made this? How is it being represented? What do they want me to take away from it? And so I chose caffeine because it's a very low stakes topic. There's a lot of information on caffeine. Caffeine is very much so available to pretty much everyone. And there's not too many strong opinions on caffeine, but they can use this topic and form these critical skills on how to parse through information and read it. And they can apply it to, other outside topics in the real world. Maybe they're just looking at a product and they're figuring out which thing they're going to get. Or maybe they're looking at information on the climate crisis, or maybe they're going through and they're looking at information on the spread of an infectious disease. So we want them to, become scientists in their own minds so that they can look at information and not just read it and accept it as truth, but to critically investigate it. All right, so thank you. And I'm going to hand this back off to Noah.
Excellent. So we really are excited to be able to have a huge portion of our time for dialogue. And so we'd like to ask our moderator, Anat, if you'd be willing to lead us and moderate. And given your background in science education, we certainly hope that you will also participate heavily in the dialogue. But we'd love to hear your thoughts about these following questions. I'll turn it over to Anat.
Thank you all so much. That was really, really a beautiful base for these conversations we're going to have. Audience members, participants in this workshop, please join in. As you are interested in joining, you can comment in the chat. You can also ask questions in the chat. If you raise your hand, I can unmute you so that you can ask a question yourself. One of the things that was really interesting to me was this reminding that we're trying to reground the role of STEM and STEM literacy in reality for our students, so that these concepts and ideas are not abstract or decontextualized, so that they're really centered in their everyday world and ways of being, and also helps them see the world anew and see the world in a different way. And one of the things I love that I kept hearing, kind of like almost tickling this idea of skepticism, because science loves skepticism. Science wants skepticism. It wants criticality. It wants and values when people take upon themselves to be a skeptic, particularly of things that they love or believe in or are really invested in. Science wants that of us, and science applauds that. And I think that's one of these areas where critical media literacy and science as fields really cross over well together and really dialogue well with each other. And it's just thinking about the way Brianna was talking about the IPCC and the NIPCC and how important those distinctions are. And when Shane was talking about why we believe what we believe and where that information comes from and how in our minds we validate it based on who's given it to us. And then realizing that data tells stories, and it's really like the stories that people are choosing to tell with the data. And that idea of skepticism is just so embedded to those pieces. And it brings me to this first dialogue question of how might we encourage beyond the text explorations of critical media literacy, particularly in STEM?
I can share. When I mentioned this idea, I found that a lot of my colleagues weren't familiar with it, unfortunately. And what I have done since is I started a book club. And I know that that sounds a little silly, but I started a book club, and one of the works that we started reading at first was Paulo Freire's Pedagogy of the Oppressed. And so this concept isn't familiar to everybody, and sometimes it can receive pushback too, but introducing people slowly to the work and showing them how important it is through giving them examples of what it might look like, and also encouraging them to discover a little bit of the background is really important.
I could just jump in. I think that that's so powerful, Brianna, thinking about the work that you're bringing and spreading into the school. And to my mind, as a teacher educator and as a former teacher, I think it's so important. And my students, I'm sure, get tired of hearing me say this at Cal State Long Beach, but we have to do this sort of work together. And that doesn't mean we're always going to be ideologically uniform. It doesn't mean we're going to agree on, the best approach to teach something or what have you, or always have the same questions, but creating communities of practice where we're exploring the best way to do something. And for example, this notion of the best way to go beyond the text is really vital. And something that comes up in Brianna's work that you touched on, that Brianna and I have done some writing around, is drawing on the work of Dr. Chris Chang Bacon. Critical literacies are being co-opted, right? Where when Brianna talks about the NPCC, that they're trying to introduce skepticism about climate science, they're taking the tools of critical literacy and saying, we need to question everything. We need to question this too. And of course, that's true. I agree with you, Anat, that science is about skepticism and questioning. But what happens when people are not or don't have the tools to question in deep ways, or to actually understand data representations that Shane was talking about? And then it's very easy to misguide people and to push in false readings of data, or completely incorrect points of view. And the final thing I want to say around that, I think, is that we don't pretend that this notion of regrounding critical literacy, of connecting textual analysis with extra textual investigations, is a panacea. We don't think this is the only thing we need to do. We see this as one more tool in the toolkit of critical media literacy. And as Shane pointed out, so much of what we believe is connected with who tells us the information, or how it connects with our identities, or how well it fits with preconceived notions. And I think we have to keep that in mind too. Oh, and I see there are other great questions coming up in the chat, so I'll stop there.
Thank you, Noah, and thank you, Brianna. Actually, your response is tied right into one of the questions from Kateri Avila, who asked, what are ways that you have worked to bring colleagues on board to promote critical media literacy? So we heard a little bit about Brianna's book club and the importance of doing this as a collective of colleagues. What are some other strategies working with colleagues at your school? I know sometimes these ideas can be met with resistance, particularly as a former science teacher. And you mentioned, Brianna, at the beginning, it can feel daunting when you feel like I have to get through A, B, C, D, E units. So what are some of the ways that Shane, Brianna, Noah, you all have brought colleagues on board, or anyone in the audience as well?
I think that the interdisciplinary aspect of this type of work makes scientific concepts so much more authentic to the students. And even if people, even if other teachers are hesitant to promote students to think critically in this way, I don't know why they would be, but if they are, a frame of mind to look at it is that sometimes it's hard to teach certain scientific concepts. Some students have minimal interest in certain things, and giving them something that's relevant to their own life to root those concepts in is a way that engages them and makes them so much more eager to participate. And I think for all teachers, that's all we want, is for students to feel like they're getting value from being in the classroom and learning and also creating knowledge too. And so I think that that's a way that you could frame it for people who are hesitant, is it's a way to increase engagement and authenticity.
Thank you. Sorry, Shane, I thought you were about to jump in there. Okay. These are some great questions, really touching upon what we're talking about. Here we're kind of recentering students. So one of the questions here from Faith Rogau is, do you have strategies to help students differentiate between questioning and mistrusting? How would you respond to a student who has internalized skepticism of corporate sourced research, and they see vaccine claims as coming from big pharma, so they adopt the anti-vax stance? And related to that, Steve Goodman has asked if any of the presenters have engaged their students in exploring some historical cases of misrepresentation of scientific evidence. And he gives the example of the tobacco industry. Thoughts, ideas?
If I could jump in to start a conversation, I don't want to be dominating in any sense, so I apologize if I'm talking too much, but this is precisely where Freire's work is so important, because Freire's work gives us a tool to analyze power, right? And think about how people in positions of power are able to have huge megaphones, to be able to have their points of view. But we also need to be able to have nuance. And I wrote back in the chat, specifically in response to Faith's question, we need to have nuance so that we can criticize and be skeptical of big pharma and say, you know, we're deeply frustrated by the unethical, to put it mildly, approaches to the way that big pharma focuses on medicines and vaccines and healthcare, grounded completely in a profit motive. But we can also understand the science behind how mRNA vaccines, for example, were created and how they were tested to be as safe as possible, demonstrated to be as safe as possible with certain potential side effects, so on and so forth. And I think that we have to be able to give, in a classroom context, people the tools to explore those nuances, to be able to see, yes, this is a really important critique. And Steve Goodman offers this really great comment about misrepresentation of data historically, from the example of the tobacco industry. And that's really important too. So we need to be able to understand how bad science has been done, or at least science has been misrepresented in the interests of people in power to continue or further repression. And we need, so we haven't done any of that work, but that's a really important point. We need to be able to think about both the interests at work, the power of the people representing the knowledge, and then be able to get into the data itself and the studies themselves to be able to think like scientists, so that we can critique and analyze, because otherwise we're simply saying, well, we trust someone completely without having that sort of disciplinary literacy focus. And in order to have a critically literate populace, we need to be able to analyze, critique, and question ourselves, but not just let those things be co-opted by people in power. And that's my 2 cents there.
Yeah, so I think that going back to, let me find the question again. Okay, how to differentiate between questioning and mistrust. I feel like that can kind of go back to my lesson a little bit and focusing on how they can actually be part of reading the. So I feel like sometimes scientific articles are very, very like daunting, and there's, you know, there's so much text and there's so much like vocabulary going on there. But I hope that, you know, from math, if they can go through and they can read, oh, this process has, you know, what's their sample size? How are they representing the data in the scientific article? You know, they can actually go through and read it and not just be like, if they can't read it, it kind of goes back to that faith versus empirical evidence. Like if they don't know what it says, they just have to trust what it says. But if they know how to read it, then they're actually like understanding it and they can believe it because they can look at like the source of the information.
And I think that ties really well again into this idea of skepticism, because I think sometimes we encourage skepticism that we think is already on the right track, as if, you know, we're coming at it like we know the answer. But we're weary of skepticism that questions what we see as truth or what we see as scientific. And in our students, all the types of skepticism are very valuable and worthwhile. And we have the tools using critical media literacy frameworks and also our scientific inquiry frameworks to encourage that skepticism and allow it to grow and allow it to form conclusions as we would want our scientific thinkers to do. Another great example from history is the Eugenics Movement. It's very unique to American history and was co-opted around the world. So I think there's great examples, historic examples to look at where science and power intersect in ways that deeply impact the way science is understood and used. And we can look at those examples today as well in a lot of our public health data. So as we approach sort of the last few minutes of this conversation, let's turn to this question here. What does it mean to be literate in today's world? And how do we invite people to practice literacies? I'm going to go ahead and take that as we're not interested in this question. So we're going to go back to the audience questions and close out with one of those, which I think here Frank posed a really nice question. If you're familiar with Joshua Meyerowitz work on multiple media literacies, would medium literacy or media grammar literacy bridge the gap to a STEM research approach from the normal social science approach?
And I think this is really important. Frank, could we hear from you? I think that's really important work to bring into this space. And I'm certainly not the best person to speak on it. If you'd be willing to share.
You can definitely unmute Frank if you'd like.
So Frank, unfortunately, doesn't have a mic. Okay, so I think that'll be great work for us all to follow up on and to read more of, thinking about the ways in which media shape messages and position audience or people taking in messages. I think that's a really important thing to explore here.
Someone did raise their hand. Oh, sorry. I was saying someone did raise their hand earlier. I didn't know if they still wanted to talk. I think it was someone named Jacob Clymer, I think.
Jacob, do you still have a question?
I just posted it in the chat. When thinking about encouraging beyond the text exploration, I think students have this deeper connection with the word influencer than author. I think it's just more relatable. And so kind of changing our language to say, well, who do you think the influencer is in this graph, this chart, this article, this data, and how are they swayed to present this information? I think it's just a more approachable way to encourage beyond the text exploration. Specifically, like in cross-media literacy, like saying like, oh, like this is relatable to us, just like how this is, or this is relatable in these facets.
I find that super important in the classroom because students are really hungry for relevance. They're really hungry to see what they're learning in classroom reflected in their own life. And it really is important when we look at this idea of reading the word in order to read the world, that our students have that space. Other thoughts from panelists?
Well, I'd love to jump in. I mean, as a teacher educator, I agree with you, Anat, that young people are so hungry for that relevance. And one of the things that we're trying in a course that I teach now is asking future teachers to bring in a meme, a video clip, whatever it might be that they imagine their students might come across, and then say, how would we center a unit or a lesson around it? To not necessarily try to take away from the aesthetic enjoyment of this text, because that's important, that young people engage with texts out of so many different desires and enjoy those texts. But if a text is making claims about something like, for example, Shane's lesson, if a young person comes in with a meme saying that caffeine stunts your growth, just to use a very low stakes example, how can we create lessons that speak to that interest in drinking caffeine? I don't know, it's kind of a boring one, but you get my point, to be able to explore through science and math classes what sorts of knowledge is behind that, so that it isn't just, as Jacob is saying, the influencer kind of pushing ideas that may not be in someone's best interest. And I don't want to have a protectionist approach to critical media literacy here, but I do think it's really important that we ask the questions of who's pushing a point of view, and is it in my interest as someone who's engaging with this text? And that's something I think that we need to always be thinking about. And I know Brianna had some thoughts as well, I see in the chat.
Yeah, I liked that thought. I'm always looking for ways to phrase things that might pique my students' interests. And I mean, they are attached to their phones and to social media. So I thought that the idea behind using the term influencer was really interesting. Thank you for that, Jacob.
Yeah, I also thought that the use of the term influencer was interesting, because a lot of times, on social media, an influencer is someone who pushes like a product onto their audience, but the different take on it is someone who pushes information onto their audience is also like a good take. And again, this could be good information, misinformation, or good information. But to look at not just the information, but the influencer themselves behind it.
I think there was a really interesting question brought up by Inez earlier, or a comment there, with thinking about why it's so hard to harmonize critical media literacy in STEM fields, and that there's a false perception that critical media literacy can make science too subjective. And I agree, I think there is that fear, and there's the sense of these are completely different domains. And I think we have to recognize that there's a difference between, say, doing science and the ways in which science is reported or taken up, or for what points of view someone might, as Brianna was discussing, cherry pick data, or even do it in a really bad way, as Brianna uncovered with the NPCC, trying to argue against climate science by completely misrepresenting a good study. So it's important, and I think it behooves science and technology and engineering and math teachers to talk about issues of representation in the way knowledge is used, because it's not just as simple as having the ability to do good science or to read data or critique data. We also all, I think, have a responsibility to analyze issues of power. Someone can be right and still not be able to get their message out. And that's where Freire's work is so important. And I think the climate crisis is sadly a perfect example of that, where there has been this knowledge produced for decades, and it's not shaping policy in the ways that we would hope it would. And that's an example of issues of power and why we need Freire in the 21st century to be able to be offering an analysis. And I don't think it's crazy to suggest that that work happens in Brianna's marine biology class or in Shane's calculus class, as well as in a literacy class or a social science class.
And there's so many great examples that are relevant to students today and that students care about. I'm thinking about the list of banned words that the CDC was asked not to use, including science-based, transgender, fetus, and actually removed from the CDC website in our during the last administration. And even terms like science-based and evidence-based were required to be removed. And these types of intersections between power and positionality, and like you said, Noah, who has the megaphone? Who gets to tell the story that the science of the science and the scientists? And unfortunately, very often it isn't the scientists that get to tell the story or get to frame the story. what are some of the things y'all think can help educators when addressing those issues of the intersectionality between CML and science, and kind of the way science and math are seen as objective fields, and CML is seen as an interpretive or a constructive field?
I think that, you know, a lot of times people do view the sciences and the maths as an objective field. And I think the problem with that is that if, you know, if it's like truly objective, they think that the student can just come in and be told, this is the truth of how something is. And then they just like, okay, that's true, I believe it. And then, you know, when they're off in the world on their own and they see something that looks like scientific, then they're just programmed to think, oh, that is objective truth. And they might believe something because the NIPCC looks scientific. And so they're kind of like conditioned to think that is truth, right? But, you know, I think that's why it's important to bring in critical media literacy into it. That way they don't just, you know, if it looks good, they just believe it's true. I don't know, you guys have anything to like add on to the more specifics of that?
It makes me think of Freire's idea of the banking model, how we want to not view our students as empty vessels to be filled, but rather they're creators of their own knowledge too. And I think that science and CML collaborations really encourage that. We're not just giving students information that is 100% true and it will be true forever and ever until the end of time. We're showing them what the data looks like and letting them make interpretations, because science is just as much a human endeavor as any subjective field is.
Yeah, and helping young people to understand that a theory is the best available story, if you will, for all available evidence that we have, that is so important for students to understand. This is an ongoing process of empirical investigation and building knowledge, and that there have been, when we study the history of science, revolutions in both hard and soft sciences. I mean, the soft ones come a lot more often, but this is important for people to be able to think about, to reflect on, to be able to think about the ways in which we need to critique, to question, and also look at the ways in which power, really comes into play here. You know, as Anat was saying, with whose stories are being told. This is I think central to the work in all of these disciplines. And I agree with Ines, made a powerful comment in the chat, that training teachers to make sure that critical media literacy is included in the curriculum. Powerful.
It's so powerful and incredibly important too, because often in science and math classrooms, science in particular, we're doing other people's science. We're repeating science that has already been done. So adding critical media literacy, a framework of critical media literacy, creates so many more opportunities for students to be the creators of knowledge. And science asks us to learn how to be creators of knowledge, verifiers of reality, skeptics of what we can't prove or what we don't have evidence of. And CML does exactly the same thing. And it's really kind of making me think about how, when we talk about the languages and techniques of a certain medium, and we talk about the languages and techniques of a certain scientific process, we're always working within a frame of the strengths and limitations of that language, or the strengths and limitations of the tools that we're using in our scientific inquiry. And there's just so much opportunity within that space for students to be creators, for students to be meaning makers. And it pushes, like regular classroom science curriculum, which very often, I'm repeating myself now, is a redo of someone else's science.
And Paulo Freire talks about that in his 1985 work, The Politics of Education. And this connects with what you're saying, and not with what you said earlier, Breanna, about Paulo's notion of the banking model. Paulo argues that if we're teaching science just as established truth and fact, rather than a constructivist approach where people are recreating this knowledge or investigating themselves, it might as well be ideology. It might as well be false knowledge, purely because people aren't actually understanding it, because they're not recreating these understandings. They're simply being told something. And how does that help make people powerful? How does that interrupt oppression? When people aren't actually learning to be scientists, they're just memorizing what other scientists have done, right? And I think Faith also raises a really important point in the chat, that we have to question the media effects of research. As Faith puts it, we have to look at both the research itself and then how it's reported. And we see this all the time in mainstream US media sites. There might be some studies showing some correlation between eating dark chocolate and something. And the next thing you know, there's a headline saying like, eating this amount of dark chocolate a day proves X or leads to this, without an understanding of what actually the study found or how that study was done.
Absolutely. And Kateri is reminding us how important the classroom space is when these types of inquiries are happening, or when we're asking our students to think in these ways, that the space has to encourage question asking. The space has to encourage divergent thinking. The space has to encourage visualizing thought process, so that students are not so concerned with getting the answer at the end, which is also very often something we're after in a science or math classroom, but are also privy to the processes that have helped scientists and mathematicians in the past arrive to those ends, and kind of like demystifying the thinking behind those processes too. What do y'all do in your classrooms to build that space so that students feel comfortable being curious, feel comfortable being creative, feel comfortable challenging ideas, or sharing something that might seem wacky? Science loves wacky.
I try to use a lot of data about what happens when you get an answer like incorrect. The other day I was playing a review game with my students, and we got all the way through it, and it was challenging. It was the content that we had gone over for like 4 or 5 weeks. And I wanted us to get to a place where we were solid enough in that content to where we could use it as a foundation to move forward. And when we got through the end of our game, we looked at the stats, and the stats showed that the class as a whole maybe got about 50% of the answers correct. And the students in my class were like, oh my gosh, like we suck. We were horrible. Like we did awful. And I was like, no, we did great. Like that is amazing for 4 to 5 weeks of work. That's incredible. And I told them too, I was like, when we do practice like this, I like when you get answers wrong. And that blew their minds. They were like, what are you talking about, Miss Coffer? You want us to get the answers right? And I'm like, no, I want you to think. And sometimes thinking involves getting the answer incorrect, or having to find ways to remember or to think about some of these topics in the future. And I told them, when you get an answer wrong the first time, the data shows between 5 to 10 times more likely to remember and to more deeply think about that topic in the future when you come across it again. And so that's just, I don't know, that's something that I do with my students to help them feel safe in not always feeling like they have to have it correct or right, whatever that means.
One thing that it's a very small thing, but I kind of got introduced to it recently. Was when you're like, finished going over some topic and you turn back towards all the students after looking at the board and you say, any questions? Someone kind of introduced me to the concept of saying, instead of saying any questions, you can say, what are your questions? Because they do have questions, like most definitely. It just kind of goes off, kind of builds on the idea that I know you have questions and I'm open to like listening to them.
Thank you. Anything else to add, panelists, on that note? This was a really, really great dialogue. Noah, Shane, Brianna, thank you for leaving so much time to have a conversation with audience members. And thank you for your expertise and for the work that you're doing. This conversation is really important and seems to become more and more deeply relevant to every aspect of our lives and of our students' lives. And so I'm really excited to see this conversation happening here at the conference and with teachers in classrooms and with students and families. So thank you for this work and thank you for this beautiful hour together. Thank you, audience members, for joining us. I will be closing the session soon so that we can stop the recording. And remember that all of the links for Shane and Brianna's work, as well as the reference to Jeff Scher's work that Noah offered, are all in the chat. Thank you, everyone, and see you all at the next session.